I'm Elaine Chapnick, president of the local summit. I want to welcome all of you to our new fall season. It doesn't feel like fall, but we know it's the fall season. I want to first ask if we have represented around here all the nonprofits in town, and I want to know if there are any announcements from anyone. Stand up and just say it loudly.
Hi, I'm Andrea Kotash, and I'm here with Marty Oppenheimer just to talk 1 minute about the Immigrant Protection Act, which is a county act that was passed. You know what, here, use this. The act was passed when George Latimer came in to office, and it's wonderful that it exists at the county level, but what we would like to do is have it at the municipality level, which is hopefully something that's easy to do, because while the legislation does not cover everything in the jurisdiction of Westchester County, while it does cover everything, I don't have my glasses on, it does not cover the local municipalities within it. However, we hope other municipalities will follow the county's lead, and it's really just doing a template of what the county has done. Okay? Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Other announcements?
So on behalf of the Center for Continuing Education and the Larchmont Library, I just want to call your attention to an important free program. I didn't have enough flyers, but every other person has one. If you're not interested, pass it to your neighbor, and I have a few extras here. It's How to Stretch Your Healthcare Dollars. It's going to be offered on Thursday, October 4th. There are 2 sessions to make sure everyone can attend at 4 p.m. and at 7 p.m. It's going to be in the building adjacent to the Larchmont Public Library in the Village Center. And it's really, it appeals to those who are concerned about their healthcare dollars, prescription costs, especially as many of us are aging. So we're asking you to register. It's free, but we're asking you to register. There's a link on the Continuing Ed site to make sure we'll have enough seating, materials, and refreshments.
Anybody else? Jeff, didn't you have an announcement?
I'll make it when I do.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have any local announcements? Okay, we're going to turn it over to Jeff for the tidbits. Oh, by the way, we want to welcome our LMC-TV. We want to welcome our Mamaroneck High School students here too. We have a representative group from Joe Liberti's class studying civil engagement.
All right, now that I've got the microphone. One hat first, that's LMC-TV. As board president, I want to announce, first of all, we got a great season coming up. We're starting this week a media program on Local Live with Lou Young, the CBS fellow, and Alina Tugin, from the journalist from the New York Times. And then on October 25th, we'll have that congressman from the Bronx, Elliot Engel, who happens to be our congressman too. He will be on live, and you can call in, computer in, twit in, whatever you'd like to do, or come to the studio and ask him questions. So the tidbit this morning, actually I got so much information that I've got to divide this into today's tidbit and next month's tidbit, which makes me sleep easier for next month. And it's in honor of our leaders, our 2 mayors and supervisor. And so I started to do a little background on this. And you know, you can go to the, Tom is already nervous. What did you do in high school? So one of the reasons I did this was I looked at the agenda here and saw that they were the program. But the other thing is that I was blessed last August to be in Nantucket Harbor. And I got off the boat. First of all, you have the feeling in Nantucket that it's really Disney World. and you can run into anybody in the world. And sure enough, I ran into Sonny Goldberg, because Sonny is everywhere. The other thing is that we got picked up by a launch. They have a commercial launch service in Nantucket, and as soon as we got on the boat, the launch driver turns to me and my wife Marcia and said, "Do you know the former mayor of Larchmont, Ann McAndrews? She said, how's Larchmont doing?" Well, talk about Sonny Goldberg, Ann McAndrews. Well, it turned out to be her nephew, who owns and operates the launch service in Nantucket Harbor. And his father was mayor in Nova Scotia, and so they would talk between the two of them and discuss. So we have a Canadian and American mayors talking related. So that was kind of neat. Back to the, as you know, villages were latecomers. I went to the town office, the village office, and the Mamaroneck office to look at the pictures on the wall. And by the way, you'll be happy to know, guys, that after you finish your term, you'll be hanged. Because their pictures are on the wall. Now, I went to the town of Mamaroneck, and of course, I can't go back over, 350 years. They don't have that many photographs up there. But it's very neat. If you go to the village of Larchmont as you go up the stairs, and the village of Mamaroneck, actually, it's hard to see because they're all in the courtroom, and they keep the courtroom locked unless you have to go to court. And the town of Mamaroneck is on the second floor, and it's kind of interesting because you see all of these men with stiff collars and so on, and gradually we get down to a period where, my goodness, we have women. And that's my subject this morning. In the town of Mamaroneck, we have had 6 women serving as supervisors. And I took the year 1900 to 2018. And first of all, what year do you think that this happened, that we first had a woman serving as supervisor? And who do you think it is? That's an easy one. Okay, what year do you think it is? No, it says in 1969. It was that late. And Chris Helwig, who a lot of people here remember, I was in class with one of her daughters. She was a square dancer, and she was a terrific supervisor. And we have leather stocking trails to thank Chris for. And Hummock School. There were 6 women, and they served. They were 37.5% of the supervisors from 1900, or they served 36 years out of 118 years, or 30%. The village of Larchmont, who do you think was the first woman mayor? Miriam. And what year do you think that was? Close, Ann. It's 1984. And there were 5 women who served as mayors, 15.5%, and 30 years out of 118 years, or 25%. Good years, yeah. The village of Mamaroneck, they had, you're getting ahead of me. Who was the first woman mayor of the village of Mamaroneck? Susie Oppenheimer. And what year do we think that is? 77. 77, all right. He's done his background work. The village of Larchmont, we have 5 women mayors. Miriam Kernan, Cheryl Louie, Elizabeth Neuer-Feld, and of course that's one of my famous questions, which I'll come to next month, who was the only father-daughter mayors, and Maury Neuer and Elizabeth Feld were father-daughter, Ann McAndrews, and Lorraine. In the town of Mamaroneck, we have Christine Helwig, Dolores Battaglia, Carolyn Silverstone, Elaine Price, Valerie Moore O'Keefe, who is the only person who knows more about tidbits than I, and Nancy. And in the Village of Mamaroneck, we have Susie Oppenheimer, Debbie Chapin, and Kathy Savolt. Who wants to buy a lectern for the group? So my last part of this tidbit until we come to fun facts next month, and I have to thank Nancy because I ran into Nancy looking outside of the town office building with Steve Altieri saying, how can we beautify even more this building? And she emailed me some fun facts which will be part of my next month's presentation. So who served of the women, who served the longest, do we think? Valerie. Valerie was 12 years. And the only other person who equaled her, man or woman, I think was Artie Phillips, who served 12 years in the Village of Mamaroneck. Cheryl Louie was 10, Miriam was 8, Susie was 7, Christine Helwig was 6, Elaine Price was 5. And that's it for this month. Look forward to my fun facts, municipal fun facts next month.
I'm now going to turn the program over to Ann McAndrews. Yeah. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, before I do that, you all know that there's a list going around for emails. Many of you have not signed in. If you've been here before, you have, but if you haven't, please sign the roster that's going around so we capture your emails and you can be informed about our future programs. In addition, the envelope that's going around collecting money is $8 for breakfast. We are charged per head. So whatever you order, if you don't order anything, we are charged $8. So it's an $8 almost admission fee to come to our breakfast. Thanks a lot.
Good morning. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. My nephew has started a great business up in Nantucket. He's a citizen. He's a dual citizen between Canada and the U.S. And yeah, those are rare these days, but it's a wonderful thing to have. And he was born and brought up in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. And let me just recommend that wonderful place if anyone is traveling up to the Maritimes. It's a wonderful place to visit. The topic this morning is current issues in our communities, an open-ended conversation by our local political leaders on issues of interest and concern. Many years ago, we had a small group put together of trustees with the League of Women Voters, and I, being a smart aleck, asked, what's your most vexing problem? And one of the trustees simply looked at me and he said, keep what we have. It took me many years to understand the wisdom of that. And so with that in mind, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our 3 local leaders. And this is how the program is going to work. We're going to give each 10 minutes with a 5-minute question period after. However, because Nancy Seligson, our town supervisor, has to be like someplace else fairly soon, we're going to give her the question and answer section first. So with that in mind, I'll simply end by telling you that I will be the timekeeper, and it's going to be nothing like a very contentious league debate we had many years ago, where I was the timekeeper with a big stop sign, and one of the candidates looked at me and he said, "The time Nazi." And so, well, he lost. But I'm not going to do that. I'm simply going to stand up at 10 minutes, and you can wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning, everyone. So this is my favorite thing in the world, to talk about the town of Mamaroneck with my colleagues. And unfortunately, I have to go run a board meeting for Sustainable Westchester. I'm co-chair of Sustainable Westchester, which is a county-wide organization. And that board meeting starts at 9:30 on the other side of the county. So that's why I'm going to talk really fast, and I have to really thank Lorraine and Tom for letting me go first, and I owe them, because I always get to go first, and I know that is not that fun. A quick primer on the town of Mamaroneck. Town of Mamaroneck was founded in 1661 when a guy named John Richbell gave the Siwanoy Indians a bunch of interesting stuff, and they said you can have Mamaroneck, which was really the three necks, and it was much larger than it is today, though. And fast forward to the 1890s, and there were population concentrations in what we now know as Larchmont and the village of Mamaroneck, and those folks decided they wanted to incorporate as villages. And so that became the two villages, and what was left was the unincorporated part of the town of Mamaroneck. And those of you who think you live in Larchmont because you have a P.O. Larchmont, but live near Murray Avenue School, have the great honor and privilege of living in the town of Mamaroneck. So the town of Mamaroneck government, of which I head, and Sabrina Fiddleman is here, our councilwoman, and I don't think anyone else is able to be here this morning from the town council. We provide all of the services to the folks who live in the unincorporated part of the town of Mamaroneck. That's about 12,000 people. So that means everything: garbage, fire, police, ambulance, roads, recreation, you name it, all the daily quality of life things that you think of. And I have to make a plug here for local government. With all the divisiveness and polarization we have going on in our world at the moment, especially our nation, I do think that local government and county government and state government are really more important than ever, because we are the ones, especially local government, where, you know, your boots are on the ground here. This is your quality of life issues. And we are working together with the county. We're lucky to have a cooperative county executive now, too. And it is really an important time, I think, for local government. So the town of Mamaroneck also provides some of the bigger services to the two villages. We administer the ambulance district. We administer the community services senior citizen program. We administer the Section 8 program. All the recreation facilities of the town are open to the villages. And just to make it more complicated, the village of Larchmont is wholly in the town of Mamaroneck, and about 2/3 of the village of Mamaroneck is in the town of Mamaroneck. The other part is in the town of Rye. So when you try and explain that to people, especially those who don't live here, they think you're crazy. So this is what's happening in the town of Mamaroneck. This is the unincorporated part of the town of Mamaroneck, although we meet collectively on a regular basis. And I am so happy to have Lorraine and Tom as my colleagues in community government. And I personally think we are a Larchmont Mamaroneck region rather than three separate municipalities. But here we go. The town of Mamaroneck is planning to update its comprehensive plan. That's a big project. Although the village of Mamaroneck is doing it, they're doing it in a much bigger way. Ours is really an update. And to thread together the current and updated documents that we have that govern our policies and regulations. We're going to be holding public hearings, and we really want to look at some of the mega parking issues that we have and some of the land use issues that we have. As Ann said, keeping our character, our community character, is a major interest of our community. So please look forward to participating in those public hearings. We got a grant from the state, and we're going to have 4 locations of electric vehicle charging stations, and we purchased 2 electric vehicles. We just got a $10,000 rebate for those 2 cars. The state pays 80% of the electric vehicle charging stations. We're very excited about that. We are continuing with my other favorite subject is sewers. I hope, well, only a few people have gotten food yet, but our sanitary sewers are in desperate need of repair. And the town of Mamaroneck, Village of Larchmont, Village of Pelham Manor, and City of New Rochelle formed a consortium to work together so that we could do it in the most cost-effective manner. And we applied for a state grant for help for that as well. And we received a $5.4 million grant from the state to help us. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the issues, in the town of Mamaroneck, we have bonded $11 million for those repairs. We plan to do that over 10 years. This first year, though, is going to be about $2.7 to $3 million in repairs for the town of Mamaroneck alone, and for the 4 municipalities together, it's $15 million. We cannot do this without help with the state and the feds, because this is way too expensive for any one municipality, and it's really important that we do it because we pollute Long Island Sound if we don't maintain and repair our sewers. We passed a gun ban law in the town of Mamaroneck 2 months ago, which prohibits guns from being in town-owned buildings. We are very happy about that. We know that's not going to fix the world or change the world per se, but it is a step forward in the safety of our community. We are embarking on a reusable bag initiative in the town of Mamaroneck. The 2 villages have already passed those kinds of legislation. We are working with our Sustainability Collaborative, our Environment Committee, to move forward with that. Again, we would need signatures from everyone to support that, because I know that the town board is interested in it. I just also know that it's possible that Walgreens, CVS, or Stop and Shop might not be so interested in it. And our budget cap this year, we're starting the budget process in the town. We're on a calendar year budget process. Our cap, our limit this year is 2.06%. That is very, very low on a $39 million budget, when you have contracts and you have all kinds of state mandates that we cannot control the increases of. So we are embarking on that program right now, and we will have budget hearings and budget meetings. All the budget meetings are open to the public. All the town board meetings are open to the public. And we would love to have some input from folks, because we don't usually get input, which I think is probably a good thing in terms of that it means people aren't raving mad about what we're doing. But it would be helpful to have input as well. So we're looking forward to the comprehensive plan process. We hope that people will participate in that. We're also going to be looking at recreational needs and services in our community during that process. And we're looking forward to working hard on the budget this year. So I'm excited about all the environmental initiatives that we have moved forward with in the town of Mamaroneck. We're saving lots of money and energy in all the efforts that we've made. And I'm very proud that we're going to have these electric vehicle charging stations available. Sustainable Westchester continues to roll out programs that encourage folks to invest in renewable energy. And your energy service supplier will also be renewed this year, which has been a fixed rate price at that is funded and provided by renewable energy credits. So that creates a renewable energy demand as well. And that's through Sustainable Westchester. That program's called Westchester Power. I know I'm talking too fast. I wish I could talk all day about all these programs. But I'm trying to go fast so my colleagues can speak, and also give some time if there's any questions. How'd I do? Oh, I had a minute and a half left. I can't believe it. Chris?
If I could just interrupt for a second. We have set tables down here. If there's anybody sitting in the back, they can come down here and have
State
breakfast.
Senators Shelley Mayer has joined us, and we have George Latimer, our county executive, here. Thank you guys for being here.
But if you would like to come down, this is your chance.
Since I had 30 more seconds now, I just want to also mention that we had a really successful cleanup event this past Saturday, and that was, we had about 50 people show up. We cleaned up the Hommocks Park conservation area, and we went into Flint Park a little bit too. We collected about 10 bags of recyclable material, mostly from, I would have to say, younger folks congregating in Hommocks Park. And also about 100 pounds of actual trash. And we're having a food truck event in October. October 20th? Yes.
You should mention your first year anniversary
Oh,
for the
yes,
composting.
on Saturday. This Saturday at the Farmers Market, we will be celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the food waste composting program. And it has been a strangely popular and very successful program.
Well done. There was a question?
Misty?
Nancy, you worked on the Greenway project years ago, so whenever
Yeah.
I think of trails and paths, I immediately think of you, but this might
Thank
be
you.
something that applies to the 3 communities. Why don't we have better bike paths going through this county? Like, we should have one going from Mamaroneck right to White Plains. And I was out riding bikes with my son, and you would never want to go in the street. You could be killed, but you're really not supposed to be. Legally, you're allowed to go on the sidewalks outside of the downtown. But it's not really fair to pedestrians. So anyway, it's not a question. It's just something to throw out. I know people who are interested in this issue. What can we do to get more bike paths all over and coordinate them with all the footpaths the trailways that, many people have worked on for years? That's it.
Now, thank you. I did not ask Christy to ask that question. I want you to know that. However, it is true that we have been working on that for a long time in the town of Mamaroneck. The Village of Larchmont has been successful in creating some bike paths, which are so welcome and wonderful. But our Sustainability Collaborative has been working with consultants, creating maps and pathways in trying to move forward with bicycle paths in our community to create connectivity so that we can travel around by bicycle and not have to get in our cars. It's difficult. You might know that parking is pretty sacred in our community, and some of the routes that we think would be most appropriate for bike paths are also well loved by people who want to park their cars there. So there's some use conflicts in the areas where we'd like to do bike paths. But if people feel strongly about that, please write me an email, because that is the strongest endorsement for moving forward on it, to hear from residents that they'd like to see bike paths. But please know that we are working on it, and it's just a difficult issue. Any other questions? Come on. Marlene. I didn't know that. That's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
You guys are too easy. All right. Well, happy Tuesday. Thanks for having us.
Ready, Ann?
The Village of Larchmont's Mayor, Lorraine Walsh.
Thank you. First of all, sure. Hi there. First of all, I just want to thank and acknowledge the presence of 3 of the trustee members from the Village of Larchmont who came out to give support and correct me if I'm wrong in any of the details I share with you. So we have Carol Casaza-Herman, Malcolm Froman, and Bubba Finelli. And of course, former Mayor Ann McAndrews, former trustee Marlene Colbert. The Village of Larchmont, I think I can safely say the state of the Village of Larchmont is quite healthy. We had a Larchmont Day celebration this Saturday. Probably about 2,000 people came out to participate and have fun together as a community. This was the 127th celebration of the incorporation of the village. And we're very proud of the fact that the entire operation was run entirely by volunteer labor. That includes our career and volunteer fire departments, our PBA, our DPW, our Board of Trustees, our administrator, as well as volunteers from the community and community groups and local businesses as well. So I think that says a lot about how Larchmont feels about itself and its community and each other. I want to focus probably primarily on discussing the downtown, because that's been a principal topic of concern in Larchmont for probably the past 5 or 6 years. Excuse me. I'm a little congested today. We're focusing, when we look at the downtown, you know, there are immediate issues, and there's also the long-term viability issue of a commercial downtown. Things have changed drastically over the last 10 to 20 years for downtowns. The internet, malls, suburbanization, it's changing the retail picture of downtowns, and we've seen that play out. So we're looking at it short-term and long-term. We want to preserve the important role that it plays in the character of Larchmont, having a viable, healthy downtown. And we're also looking to stabilize and improve the health of the commercial tax base, which is very important to our financial health as a village. We have a multi-pronged approach there. We're looking at the types of shops, working closely with landlords. We work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce to support existing businesses. We've paid a lot of attention to the condition and the atmosphere and the infrastructure of the downtown, completing the Palmer Streetscape, painting the Welcome to Larchmont Chatsworth Bridge, creating a pocket park on Palmer Avenue. All of these, make the downtown feel more welcoming and bring people out to just spend time together. Increases foot traffic, and that helps the retail businesses. We made some changes to regulations and building department processes to sort of smooth out some of the red tape for new businesses coming to open up in the village. And we're also looking for some opportunities to improve some of our underperforming properties. In the last 2.5 years, when I first became mayor 2.5 years ago, our vacancy rate was about 12% in the downtown area. We've managed to get it down to somewhere between 5 and 6%. Apparently that is considered a healthy downtown, and we're very proud of that fact, but we're not finished. However, we're very happy that the former Ann Taylor building has been filled. Longford's has returned. We have a new bike shop. We have a new art school. And really very importantly and telling is that several of the stores in Larchmont have expanded or are planning to expand very soon. And that says to me that if you have a well-run business, there is definitely, Larchmont is a healthy place for you to have your business. There's a lot of buying going on, and that we are on the rise. We also wonderfully had our movie theater purchased by Charles Cohen of Cohen Media, and he has a beautiful plan for that theater. He, first of all, produces movies and owns an incredibly large movie library. And he is expanding that theater out the back and out the side and completely renovating the interior. So it's going to be a 4-screen theater. And it's going to be showing independent movies, documentaries, feature films, art shows. It'll have film series, etc. He described it to me when we met the first time. He wants it to be the Jacob Burns Film Center of Southern Westchester. So I think that's a phenomenal thing. It does sound good. It'll be a great anchor for the downtown, and it's really going to bring a lot of people to our downtown. Of course, that means that we're going to, as a board, have to pay a lot of attention to pedestrian traffic and parking, which I will get to for sure. I just want to let you know that plan has received all its variances. It's in front of the planning board. We hope that it will be approved and completed by next month, and after that he'll probably be able to start pulling permits. So fingers crossed for potentially a next fall as an opening target date. We still have a lot of challenges remaining, obviously, right? So some of those are, we have a couple of landlords who have long-term vacancies, and so we're still looking for what is the right pressure point to get those landlords to fill those vacancies. We've tried the carrot method, and the carrot method is, actually going out, working with brokers in the community, bringing tenants to them to present. For some, that's worked, and that's how we got the Ann Taylor store filled. But we have some others, and they've been a little difficult. So now we're looking at sticks. And we haven't found quite the right stick yet, but we will. I am confident that we will at some point manage to get some of those very visible vacancies filled. And of course parking, because I heard you. So parking is a perennial problem in the village. As a matter of fact, I just came across a report that was written by an advisory group that formed in the 1950s. And one of the chapters in there was the parking issue. So, and it's funny because I read through it and it discussed, to a lesser extent, but pretty much all the same issues that we're facing now. And there have been several parking studies done by the village through the years. And we are in the midst of a comprehensive parking study right now with BFJ planning. I'd like to say that the difference is that this time we're actually going to implement the recommendations because it's time to act. We've gotten to a point where parking has really become a problem for the health of our downtown. Part of the parking study, they did inventory of vehicles and intercept surveys. They actually drove around during the week and on the weekends and videotaped the license plates of the vehicles parked in the street and then did comparisons hour to hour to see how long do cars stay parked on the street. We have a real problem with people overstaying the time limit, seriously overstaying the time limit. And it's a range of issues there. We have residents that live in the downtown. We have commuters who park on the street all day. We have, unfortunately, business owners and their employees who park on the street in front of their stores. I suppose they figure it's only in front of their store and maybe the next guy won't do it, so that's where their customers can park. But one thing we've learned from our consultants is that on-street parking has to be prioritized for your shoppers. It has to be prioritized for your short-term parker who's going to go into a store, go into a restaurant, and then move on. In other words, you have to have a pretty high frequency of turnover in the on-street parking. We also have talked to a lot of people in the community and a lot of the sort of stakeholders. We did surveys with the apartment dwellers. We talked to the Chatsworth School. We spoke with the postmistress at the post office. We had meetings with the chambers of commerce and merchants from the village, both in the Palmer District and at the Post Road, to get their feedback, find out what the common issues are. And one thing that we are going to be doing, most likely, we are looking at in on-street parking as a way to help increase the turnover rate of cars on the street is to install paid parking through kiosks and mobile apps. Because right now, enforcement of the time limits is very inefficient. We have a manual process where we walk around and chalk the tires. And in order for enforcement to be effective, we'd have to have an incredible number of PEOs to walk around and make sure that every 2 hours they went up and down every street in the commercial district. And that's just not tenable. We're also looking at restructuring our parking permit system and looking for opportunities for additional parking, whether that's going to be shared parking with private lots, where we can sort of take turns. They use it during the day for their business. We can use it overnight maybe for apartment dweller parking. And we're also looking at school zone parking, because we do have an elementary school pretty much in the commercial district. They have a certain number of teachers. They have no parking on site. So they park wherever they can find spaces. And if we can provide for them a safe space for them to park where they don't have to worry about running out to move their vehicle or get a ticket, but it's outside of the commercial parking district, it's going to be a big help for them and for our merchants as well. So that's the downtown. I'm sure you'll have questions for that. I know people have asked me a little bit about all the disruption in the roads lately in Larchmont. So the New York State Public Service Commission mandated that Con Ed has to replace 20 miles of gas mains every year. And because of Larchmont's age, and also because of the high water table in Larchmont, we've become a priority for them. So they've come to Larchmont to replace our gas mains. Now what happens is, while they're replacing a gas main, if they detect leaks, they then have to address those leaks. So they started on Cherry Avenue replacing the gas mains, and then they detected some leaks, and they ended up going down Bronson, down Locust, of course, right around the first day of school. So that was very disruptive. So they're sort of all over the place. And what I also learned just this week, I didn't know before, is that any time the road is disturbed and we expose a gas main, like if we're fixing a leak or something, they have to come and replace that exposed piece of main. So there's a lot of that as well. The upside is that they pay to repave the road. So depending on the condition and the age of the last paving, it's either to the midline or curb to curb. And so that's a good way for us to get some of our roads repaved at no cost to the village. I think I'm up, right?
Yeah, you're up.
Sorry.
I'd just like to ask that everybody sign in. There's a sheet going around, and also there is also an envelope going around. Anyone who hasn't paid, please do. $8. Thank you very much. Why don't we have the opportunity to have a question?
Sure.
5 minutes now. Okay.
I think you've
Keith,
got one right there.
first? Okay.
Good morning. Growing up in this area, Larchmont has always had that dilemma of having two downtowns.
Yes.
And, when you say, you say downtown, you'd have to differentiate between Palmer or Post. So, with all this development, please, talk about either as Palmer or Post.
Yes, you're right. And sometimes I get tired of having to make the distinction, but it really is an issue, and it's actually a problem, which we can't solve, of course, unless we dissolve, being so small and having two downtowns. And they do have distinct personalities and issues. So, the Palmer district has problems with parking exacerbated by the fact that that's where the train station is. And so we have a lot of people coming from out of town and trying to park on the streets around the commercial district instead of getting permits in wherever they would normally be taking the train from. And then the post road side, has more restaurants, so we have a lot of night and weekend business there. And so that's when the parking gets tight there. But, it's also a matter of when we're planning events, and we were planning things with the chamber, it's difficult as well because we have to try to either do something here in Palmer and then do something else in the post road, or coordinate, and it's difficult to get people to be in one place and then wander through a residential area to get to the other side. So it's complicated. If I had my way, I could just take one and squish it to the other, but it is what it is. So we try to make the best of it.
Can you talk about what's happening in the building that's next to the Landmark Tavern? I mean, the Larchmont Tavern. I think it was called Groove Arts.
Right. So that building is actually 4 stores. Groove, the music school, the Larchmont Opticians, the former Food Basket, and the former Flower Shop. Food Basket, the Flower Shop and the Food Basket have been closed for several years now, empty. That building was purchased probably about 6 months ago. The new owner has not yet come to present to the board what he would like to do with the property. I assume it's going to be something that we will all enjoy. The board is going to work very hard to make sure that whatever happens there is in character with the downtown, that it provides some sort of give back or amenity to the village that we need. But that is also going to potentially upgrade the status of that property because it's rather derelict inside. And also, that would be a nice way to improve the tax base for that property. If I had a group, a business district advisory group of volunteers, they did some analysis looking back at our tax records and created a map where they marked out the reductions in assessments for commercial properties all through that district. And that property is one of several, but they certainly have had some serious reductions over the years. Nobody gets a free ride, but you probably know commercial properties are assessed differently than residential properties, and part of what goes into the assessment, although it's not the entire thing, is the sort of the rent roll, the profit and loss of the building itself. So we're hoping it's going to be a wonderful, vibrant space with some new retail, and we'll let you know as soon as there's something made public. Yeah.
Can you tell us, excuse me, can you tell us what is the status of the building that was burned down about 2 years ago?
Yes, I can.
Has been vacant and not built?
It burned down, it'll be 2 years this November, and we've been working very closely with the owner. We worked hard with him to get him to tear the entire thing down, which was certainly better than the moldy, rotting hulk that was there for a couple of months. And he has all his approvals for a replacement building. It's the same substantially in size. He was grandfathered in for the building size that he had before. It's going to be really beautiful retail space on the ground floor, very high ceilings, so a nice modern space that will appeal to a new tenant, and 2 stories of apartments above. Much nicer apartments than had been there because it was a quite an old building with washer dryers and an elevator, and it's going to be very nice. So he got his final approvals. I believe 2 months ago he got his architectural review, and that was finished. His architect is working on his construction drawings right now so they can start pulling permits. We're going to try to expedite his process so that he can pull permits to start on the foundation before winter comes, and then finish the drawings and get permits for the rest of the building. So fingers crossed. Again, we got a lot of fingers crossed, but he's moving ahead. It's just a matter of scheduling it out and getting all the drawings done. So certainly by next spring, we'll have a new building there.
The sort of mythology is that there are tax benefits for the landlords to stay empty, and I never quite understand that. Is that in fact true?
Well, I mean, not to the extent that people, that the lore leads you to believe. So the lore is that if they keep their space empty, they basically just have a building and they pay no tax. It's not true. They can get a reduction in their tax, but it's based upon the revenue that the building brings in. They can file a tax certiorari and over the course of time get a reduction in taxes. I think the concept of a tax benefit comes in for property owners who have large portfolios of properties, and basically they use one property as a write-off for the profit of some other enterprise, and that might be the case with one of my difficult landlords.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Well done. Right. We should also welcome our new state senator, Shelley Mayer, and our state assemblyman, Steve Otis. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying breakfast. And George Latimer was here. The Phantom, I don't know how he does 2 or 3 meetings at the same time, but he was here earlier, I promise. And now, last but certainly not least, is the mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck, Tom Murphy. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I just want to point out we have 2 other elected officials in the Village of Mamaroneck here. We have Trustee Nora Lucas, and we have Judge Christy Derrico. Thank you both for coming down. there's been a lot going on in the village of Mamaroneck. The village of Mamaroneck, unlike our two sister municipalities, has more of the characteristics of a city, of a small city. While that's being true, we also want to keep the small town feel of a village and of a community that's welcoming, a community where people know their neighbors, a community that cares for each other. And I think one of the things I've noticed since being elected is this is a community that does care for each other. Whenever there seems to be a need or a people that need help, the community comes out pretty strong. We saw it this weekend. There was some high school children ran a clothes giveaway in Columbus Park, and hundreds of people from the community that needed a hand. That they called it the street store, but everything was free, and there was a lot of great merchandise. And I see stuff like that, and especially with young people, and it gives me hope for the future. And these days, we all need hope for the future. It's hard to come by sometimes. But there's a lot going on in the village of Mamaroneck. If you haven't noticed, there's some construction going on in the village of Mamaroneck these days. And there's going to be a lot of new units coming online. These are units that are either in construction or have already been approved. I think the last time I looked, it was like 159 units. And a lot of these are in areas that are already congested. There's a big building going up on Waverly Avenue. So this is facts on the ground that we're going to have to deal with as a community. But to that end, one of the things that the board has initiated in the past year is something called the Safe Streets Initiative. And we hired a consultant, a traffic consultant, because when Nora and I were running last year for election, anytime you knocked on a door of a parent with younger children, the first thing they said usually was the safety of their kids walking the streets. And I grew up in New York City, so I have some reference to how dangerous streets can be when you're trying to cross streets. So that really hit home with me, and this is one of the things that we're going to try and alleviate, so that people drive slower. And you know what? It's us. It's really us in this community that drives fast. We're all overbooked. We're all stressed. At the end of the school day, we got to get this kid to ballet. This kid's got to go to soccer, and it makes for a hectic life that we've given ourselves. But that being said, we could all slow down to protect our children, and that's the message that we're trying to get out. This is about protecting our kids. It isn't about giving you tickets, although that's going to happen. The end result is because we want to protect our kids, and I appreciate the board's support on that, and we're moving forward with that. But there's a lot of things going on in the village of Mamaroneck, and I'm going to try and read this without my glasses. The mayor has 1.25, which I'm like a 2.5. Okay, when we first got elected, we began televising the Board of Trustee work sessions. This was for the first time because there's always questions in the village of Mamaroneck about transparency and stuff going on behind the scenes. So you can watch the work sessions now, and it isn't always pretty. But as they say, it's like watching sausage being made. But it also, I think, gives a lot of the community a sense of how government actually works. The regular Board of Trustees meeting are kind of the result of what has happened in those work sessions. So why not show everybody how the whole picture comes together? So that began almost immediately after we got elected. We've opened up the beach in the off-season so the folks can go down to Harbor Island Park and access the little bit of waterfront that's available in this community, and that's been very popular. For years it was locked. Nance, have a good day. I'll see you at a meeting later on this afternoon.
One of my favorite speakers.
So that, while really just removing a padlock, it's amazing how a little thing can affect people. I got more calls about opening up the beach than about a lot of things. And we all need time by the water to reflect. For me, it's a time to gather my thoughts, and that little thing has really, improved the quality of life for some people. We were talking about parking before. Residents will now be able to park in the downtown of Mamaroneck using an app. So it's not just going to be quarters. There'll still be meters with quarters, but there'll also be, you can download an app on your phone and park on the avenue. This will allow you also to renew the parking if you're going to stay longer than you had anticipated. I think that the mayor pointed out a lot of the problem with parking in the downtown is the business owners and the employees, and that's a perennial problem, and we're trying to work on it too. And it's so counterintuitive. You would think that they would realize that not parking in front of their store limits their ability to make money, but you could lead a horse to water. The village will soon be installing new signage in the downtown to make it more attractive and to kind of highlight the landmarks in the community that people are always looking for, like the library and the Emmeline and some of the different clubs and stuff, so that it would make it easier to find your way around the village, and hopefully it'll make it more attractive. We've enacted a moratorium to control development in our community. We'll soon be proposing new zoning restrictions. I can only imagine that these zoning restrictions will be a little more stringent than the past zoning restrictions. That being said, I think we want to also, and then something that I care about is make allowances in that for affordable housing. I grew up in affordable housing in the city. I know how important it is to have safe, clean, secure housing for a family, a place where a kid could study. And I know that it's such a need in this community. We have a lot of people who work in this area, who work for the village, who work for your village, who work for the town, who can't afford to live around here anymore. I don't think I'd be able to afford to live around here if I hadn't gotten in when I got in. I was talking to a young man who does my job, and he lives in the Bronx, and he makes a good living. And he said to me, "What do you think about me buying him a Mamaroneck?" And I said, "Does your wife work?" He says, "No, she wants to stay home with the kids." I said, "It's going to be hard." And that's a shame, because there's a potential good citizen that we've lost because he's priced out of the market. And I told him I'd look out for him if I hear anything, but I just what he wants to spend, I don't see what we can get for him, and that's a shame. And also for people who grew up here who can no longer remain here. We're continuing to seek citizen input for the comprehensive plan. As Nancy pointed out, we're redoing our comprehensive plan. We've had community meetings. We'll have more community meetings. This hopefully will inform the zoning that we enact. The village of Mamaroneck, as we said before, is a very complicated place. We not only have a downtown, we have actually two downtowns on one side of the railroad bridge, and on the other side of the railroad bridge, we have a lot of different neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods are extremely diverse, especially socio-economically. We have extreme wealth, and we have real poverty in the village of Mamaroneck, and everything in between, which sometimes is a great thing, and it's nice to see people interact, but sometimes it creates different stresses. Some people can't understand the problems of other people because they just don't relate, and it's hard for some people to imagine living paycheck to paycheck and losing that paycheck and wondering how am I going to keep this apartment? How am I going to feed my children? And there's a large segment of the village of Mamaroneck population who experiences that. And it's not just people in poverty, it's people who are working a job, and just, it's a hard, as I pointed out, it's a hard place to live around. And, we're going to try and, keep taxes to just what we need to do. But that's also a very difficult thing to do in this environment because we are all very old communities. Infrastructure is aging, and, as an elected official, that's part of your responsibility, too, is to, not only to provide infrastructure for today, but for the future. We're living off, a lot of ways, the work that was done during the Depression by the WPA. And, and thank God they were there, but we can't, continue to live off Franklin Delano Roosevelt's legacy forever. We have to create one of our own. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the village of Mamaroneck. We also have a food waste recycling program that we started. reflective of what the town and the village did. That's starting slowly, and I think August was a slow month for that. But I think a lot of people were away in August. I think we're going to be pushing that more. If you live in a village, you can take your food waste recycling down to the Fayette Avenue Recycling Center. There is a place to put it. You can buy a kit from the village for $20, which gives you a container to put in your kitchen and another container to put in your garage. And then you take the one in the garage down to the village and you empty it, and you've helped the environment, and you've taken all this waste out of the stream that we have to pay tipping costs for, so it helps the village financially a little bit too. And hopefully, we'll be renewing the soil in this area. One last thing, the village of Mamaroneck is also going to get a new movie theater. Ours is going to be 6 seats. Okay. So just, nice. But it's also going to be a combination first-run movies and art movies. So that'll be a boon to the downtown. Our downtown is bustling. There's so many great movies that I know my kids and other kids haven't seen. That we used to all see them on 5, 9, and 11 when the Mets were rained out and stuff like that. They'd show old movies. But, I tell my kids about these movies, and they don't want to see them because they're black and white. But there's a lot of great cinema out there that hopefully we will tap into. But I think my time's pretty much run out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. Is there any village involvement or regulation regarding the TOD, the commercial space that's going into that nice big transit-oriented development on Mamaroneck Avenue? In other words, the commercial, is there commercial space on the main floor?
Yes, I think there's a development going up right now in the TOD area where the old A&P supermarket was, and that's all going to be commercial space. So. Oh, where Jalapenos is. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think there's supposed to be a restaurant that was supposed to be going in it. Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Is the housing that they're putting up in Washingtonville, for example, what's going up on Waverly Avenue, is that going to be affordable housing?
You know what? When I last left the board, we had, that had been passed. I voted no on it, but that had been passed, and there was a provision for affordable. It then went through a litigation, and the courts came up with a settlement, and the village agreed to the settlement. I don't think there's affordable housing in it now, and that's a shame. We were supposed to get in the original 9 affordable units, but you know the area well. Imagine all those cars coming out on Waverly Avenue in the morning. It's going to be difficult. I think Sharondi has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. My heart sank when you said that there's no affordable housing in those units. More and more we're getting questions from community members just coming to the center. I think like maybe 20 a week asking how like where is there affordable housing? Do we know anything about those buildings? And the more we see family separations and breadwinners really leaving because of family separation due to immigration status, the more we're seeing that families can't live together or need to rent apartments differently and possibly in unsafe circumstances just to make ends meet. Even people who do have jobs and do have a pretty good income. So I'm sad to hear that there is no affordable housing units in those buildings. But what about that building that burned down? Is there any update on the building that burned down on Mount Pleasant? Could that possibly be affordable housing in the next couple of years, or?
Well, he can rebuild that building as of right, because we can't force him to put in affordable housing. So no, I mean, I think that what we have to do is that we have to make sure that affordable housing is something that's enshrined in our zoning. If you're going to build something in the village of Mamaroneck, you've got to give something back. I think what you've seen in the past, 8, 9 years is developers, coming in, taking, and not leaving anything behind that's worthwhile. And that's one of the things that we're trying to change. And we're trying to, work so that if you're going to come in here and make your money, you got to leave something behind to help us all. And I just want to point out, I don't know if you all know Gerandi. Gerandi is the director of the Community Resource Center. I am so blessed to have her in Mamaroneck, because if I know of a family or of a person that needs help and needs social services, I know right where to send them, and I know they'll be caring, competent people who are going to help them out. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I've got County Executive.
Tom, I want to follow up on Gerondi's comment because it applies to all three communities. The truth of the matter is that these three communities can't do affordable housing the way they should because the county got out of the business of advocating for affordable housing for 8 solid years. They did just the minimum that was necessary, fought a lawsuit with HUD. We all watched that. We all saw what happened. When a community has a little bit of authority to require new construction, that there be so many units and so forth, but they don't necessarily have the financial leverage in Larchmont and the village or the town. The county government, with its funds and the county's ability to go to the state to get HCR funds, is what was missing for all this time in between. So I am less critical of what the villages and the town have done in affordable housing, and that's what we're going to try to change at the county with an affordable housing study, show what the need is, aggressively get state funding. Now, we have one other problem. That's the federal government is backing out of affordable housing under the current administration. So I will argue at some point in time, we need a new administration.
I have 2 questions. One is, what's happening with the lot on Prospect and Fenimore? It was part of the church slot?
The church divided the lot, subdivided the lot. The church owns the back of the lot, which they use for parking. Somebody bought the front of the lot and...
Talking to the microphone.
I'm sorry. Somebody bought the front of the lot. And that young lady controls most of my, public appearances. Yes. The front of the lot, I was told there was going to be a house built there. The developer, the person who owns it, has not progressed with that. And from time to time, we have to get after him because it starts looking really bad. I know that there was some correspondence recently with him. And hopefully he'll be cleaning up his act. He's been cited, I believe. So that's something that we're working.
It's kind of at this point. It's kind of at an all-time low. The other thing I wanted to ask about is there any change to the status of the affordable housing in the building that's opposite the Mamaroneck train station?
There was a change of ownership. So I think it's still affordable housing that's provided for seniors. So I don't think it's a goal. I don't think it has changed. I just think there was a change of ownership. Elizabeth and Keith have been.
I'll be quick. It's always amazing to me. I'll just be loud. It's always amazing to me how.
You got to use the mic. Tina's going to get mad.
How many people here really don't understand where they live. They don't understand, all the confusion with the post office in Mamaroneck and Larchmont and so forth. To what extent, I know there's been a lot of it, is there consolidation of different government functions among the different communities, a sharing? I know there's been some, but how can that be expanded, or should it? Fire, police,
right. I in a macro level, I think these 3 communities share more services than any other 3 contiguous communities. The cable TV and the ambulance district, but the goal is always to save money and to consolidate. But the problem is that when you talk about consolidating police, everybody still wants their own police department. You know what I mean? So what we've talked about is possibly, and this is just in the infancy, consolidating dispatching, because all 3 police communities share the same radio frequency anyway. But you know, I think what we have to do, Elizabeth, is do small bites at a time, because you know, there's everybody talks about consolidation until it's something that they care about. You know what I mean? No, I wanted you to consolidate the other guy's stuff. Yeah, this is mine. Yeah, I like the way this works. So it's a goal that I think we're working toward. And I'll tell you this. You know, Nancy and myself and Lorraine, you know, talk a lot. You know, we run things by each other. So you know, I think that that there will be more opportunities in the future because there's a lot of communication between the three communities.
Because Ann knows that the village of Larchmont and the town of I should stand up. The village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck actually do already share a lot of services, which I'm sure you're aware. So we have the Sanitation Commission, which we share. We share the library. We have shared contracts for animal control with the New Rochelle Humane Society. We often go out for paving contracts and sidewalk contracts together. So we're looking constantly for opportunities where we can join together and realize a cost savings. And we continue to do that. As Tom said, we continue to do that at every chance. It does ultimately come down to the big ticket items if you're really looking to make some serious changes to the cost of running these governments. And that would mean in the police and fire department, because personnel is really your largest expense. And that is a sticky topic in the communities because we all have our own personality. And we're very dedicated and attached to our own services and the people who provide those services to us. So it's not off the table, but it certainly is sort of one of those last resort, I think, situations. But like Tom said, we are discussing merging the nighttime dispatching, whereby potentially the night desk would rotate from community to community, which would free up some officers for patrol and help with the police budgets as well.
We did promise people that we would end at 9 o'clock, and it is 9 o'clock, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to end the meeting and thank our speakers and thank our politicians. And thank all of you for coming. Our next meeting is on October 16th, and we're going to be discussing and presenting the issues relating to the historic preservation issue in Larchmont. So hope to see you next month, October 16th. Thank you for coming. Thanks for getting me.